The 2026 season is officially here and Melbourne Storm have made it 24 consecutive round 1 wins. That is insane. For perspective, I turned 24 this year, so I have not seen Storm lose round 1 my entire life. Today I want to talk about what hurt the Eels, the stats behind our monstrous Storm pack, and why Jonah Pesett's return to AAMI Park was a nightmare. Before we start talking about the game, I just want to talk about some predictions I saw because people were genuinely convinced that Storm were vulnerable going into this game. There was so much noise about the Eels and obviously the off-season drama between Storm and Lomax that the narrative suddenly became Para are fired up, they're going to get revenge, Melbourne are vulnerable, everyone's left, the streak is over. That's pretty much all I saw. And look, I understand the tension that was behind this game. I understand the history that we have with Parramatta and why their fans hate us. And you know what? Fair enough. But if you genuinely thought a bottom 8 team from last year was going to waltz into AAMI Park round 1 and take down Melbourne Storm because of off-field drama, you're kind of ridiculous. I'm sorry. To be honest though, I can get on board with the Eels fans talking about how the officiating in this game was entirely unfair. Don't get me wrong, that's not why Para lost, and I think it's a bit delusional if you were to say that. I didn't agree with the Brian Kelly knock-on, and I didn't agree with the Hopgood sin bin. I understand why it was a sin bin with what happened to Eli Katoa. When there's a player who's on the ground, not getting up, he looks poorly, his eyes are like rolled in the back of his head, the intent and the force sort of go out the window and it becomes a sin bin. Hello. It's just the NRL covering their own asses as per usual. Scoring opened with Parramatta while they were a man down with Hopgood in the bench, with Sean Russell scoring in the corner and earning them their 4 points. However, those would be the only points they would get the entire night. Melbourne Storm scored 9 unanswered tries after that. The Eels had a 62% completion rate against the Storm. That means almost 4 out of every 10 times they had the ball, they were handing it over early. They were making an error. They were losing it. As any fan of this sport knows, that obviously leads to a lot of fatigue if you're defending all the time. And that's where Melbourne Storm thrive. They thrive off any kind of weakness from their opposition, but especially fatigue. Melbourne absolutely exploited the lack of chemistry in the halves. It felt like Moses and Pezet were not cohesive at all. It felt almost like a little competition with each other. It was almost too easy for the Storm defense to smother them out and take away Moses's platform or space to create literally anything. I want to take some time to touch on 3 players that I thought were standout players for this match, and I think we can all agree that Stefano was a standout, Joe Chan was a standout, and Harry Grant was a standout. There were obviously stellar performances from the rest of the squad, but I need to talk about these 3 because the stats are kind of insane. Stefano was possessed or something. He ran 242 meters, which is a career best for him, I'm pretty sure. That's impressive. I thought Stefano was good last year, but I fear he's only getting better. Joe Chan is proving to be absolutely vital in the absence of Sean Bloor. While he was playing on Hughes' edge, he was absolutely electric. There was nothing that could stop him. 181 run meters and a try. I think we can all agree that Harry was phenomenal. He was at his best. 2 tries and 13 line break assists. 13 line break assists is an absolute insult to Parramatta. Obviously, because Para spent so much of the night defending and their forward pack was fatigued, that's where Harry Grant shines. He is so good at exploiting tired markers. By running on their inside shoulder, the defenders had to make a choice every single time. Do they commit to tackling Harry Grant and leave a gap open for a teammate, or do they stay wide and let him run? Most of the time, it didn't really matter because they were too tired to do either anyway. I think his behaviour towards Jonah Peset was really interesting. There were a few instances where he would pass flat and hard to a running back rower directly in the channel where Peset was defending, which was usually Chan. This obviously forces Peset to make more one-on-one tackles with a larger, more damaging player, which fatigues him and knocks his confidence. It's then really hard to focus on creating an attack when you're fatigued because Harry Grant keeps sending a 105 kilo back rower straight to you. The Eels looked so disorganised because Harry just never let them get into a defensive rhythm. He was changing the tempo constantly. If he noticed that the Storm boys needed more time to reorganise, he'd slow it down a little. But if the Eels looked vulnerable, he'd speed it up and attack. I just think he has one of the best eyes for footy that I've ever seen. I think Munster was completely underrated in this game. A lot of people are talking about his teammates. A lot of people are talking about Harry and Hughes. But Munster was an incredible decoy and facilitator in this match, in my opinion. He was drawing in multiple defenders. He was creating gaps for players like Howarth and Warbrick. He was really exploiting the defensive line. This was just one of those games where Grant, Hughes and Munster were a big machine and they were all moving parts. They were all doing their job. It was beautiful. It was so cohesive and it was really exciting to see them play that way. I obviously also want to talk about the 9 tries because who doesn't want to talk about 9 unanswered tries that their team scored? It was so fantastic to see Warbrick scoring again. It was so fantastic to see Moses Leo get his first NRL try. 2 tries for Sewer, 2 tries for Harry. Lasati getting over, Chan getting over. Jack Howarth, I want to touch specifically on Sewer. Obviously, it was his first ever game as first choice starting fullback. I think he did fantastic. I think last year when he was filling in for Pappenhausen, he had the tendency to overdo things a little bit and it seemed like he was trying too hard to prove himself. This led to some inconsistency, it led to some errors, it led to people wondering how he would go this year. I think it's quite obvious that he has made insane progress on the off season. One thing that I really liked about his game is that he was just playing like a fullback. He was always where he needed to be. Obviously, fullbacks don't just sit back. They have to follow the play and provide options for their halves. Sewer was just always there. Whether it was Hughes, Munster, anyone making a break, he was on their hip. He had textbook support lines. He was able to finish off those tries so easily and so calmly, and that is a big improvement to how we've seen him before. Sewer had 197 run meters, if I remember correctly, and that is impressive for a fullback. I'd say anything over 185 is elite performance from a fullback. I'm also really loving his Billy Slater influence on his game with his little chip and chase kicks. Obviously, those two have been working very close together and I love it. Let me know your thoughts. What did you like? What did you not like? Who were your standout players? Who do you think could have done better? I'll see you next round.